Can't believe it. What an honor for me and for our viewers. We're here with the legendary Francine York. A long career in movies, feature films, and television. The show listing is as long as my arm, and I have a pretty long arm. Bewitched, Batman, My Favorite Martian. Currently on the sitcom Hot in Cleveland, she plays a British soap opera star opposite Wendy Malick, Valerie Bertinelli, and Betty White. Also formerly of The King of Queens, and has acted with many of the greats, of which she is one herself. And Francine, it's an honor, dear. So nice to have you. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm just wonderful, and I'm very excited to be talking to this wonderful. You are Italian, aren't you?
Well, it's a very good question. There is some French in there. We can't really figure out where, only because the only way we can really determine that is the prefix of my surname, which is not D apostrophe, but D-E. I think there might have been some wandering Italians that somehow kind of wandered through France and came back and either didn't want to admit it or something, but that's, we've never really kind of put that on the chart, I think, as far as it could, but that's...
Because I know there were a lot of DeAngelos in the business, so I just assumed that they were very Italian. So.
Well, you know, it's an interesting thing because my dad, my uncle, and several of my cousins, their nephews, my uncles, they worked in the theatrical business, but they worked behind the scenes. My dad did lighting and sound for Broadway shows, and I never really wanted to get into that business because I didn't want to work at night, and of course I started doing this particular business, if you will, cable and internet broadcasting, and you're working all kinds of crazy hours. I'm sure my dad is laughing up a storm. I mean, it's, listen, if you want a subject, you can tell us about what is scheduling like for an actress. I can only imagine.
Well, you just never know. You know, you get called for interviews, and you have a whole week planned, and all of a sudden the agent calls, and you have to be someplace tomorrow or 2 hours, and you have to learn a script, and you go on these interviews, and then sometimes you get them, and sometimes you don't. And then, of course, you have to be very thick-skinned about it all, because it's not really you. It's, you know, the director, for example, doesn't like redheads, or doesn't want a blonde, or it's crazy. And the business is getting crazier now. You know, ever since they've done all the extras in, and after, of course, is now with SAG, they've let a lot of people that probably just got out of school, which could be in my age bracket or younger, and they're my competition, and I've been at this craft for 50 years, and I'm only 39, and that's not easy. But so it's very much changed. I mean, and the thing is that there's so many shows. My God, I've never seen every bloody network, and of course on the internet they have all these shows. I mean, it's never been this much. It was always just the networks, you know, CBS, NBC, and it's the things like that. But now it's just everywhere. So, and yet it's good because there's a lot more shows, and of course the type of shows are. You know, we'll never have those wonderful times of the 60s. That was quite an era. And it was very special and kind of never to return. And there was an innocence about the shows, you know. There's no innocence left in the movies or shows today. It's all out there.
It's really amazing, and not long ago, it might have been last week, my wife Kathleen and I were watching, it wasn't your episode of Batman, but it was an episode of Batman, and what is amazing to me in watching that to this day, now, I watched it as a tyke, you know, I was born in the mid-1950s, and the cinematography, the scenery, the props, the acting, the character of the actors, who the actors themselves were, and the fascinating thing that you see as an adult is just the whole kind of, shall we say, sort of a socio-political undercurrent that you didn't really pick up when you were 10 years old, and it was. You know, and all of your guys, and you know, your role especially, I mean, everything was perfectly acted, and you're right, we're never going to see that again.
No, well, it was such fun to do Batman. I mean, and working with Roddy McDowell. I mean, this man was, and I think about it when I was a kid, I would see him in movies. Last he'd come home, and I'm working with Roddy McDowell. I mean, this was really a treat. I was very, very saddened when he passed. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just much too soon, but what a talent, and he made that character so beautifully, a bookworm. I mean, he tailored every single thing, every movement, and when they did this biography of him on A&E channel, they asked him what he liked best about doing it. He said, my partner, Francine York, and I thought that was so nice. To get that nice compliment, because we worked on the show for 2 weeks. I mean, it was a ball. And I'm still friendly with the guys, you know. I mean, there's one scene in there where they take me to the bat cave, and they say, give her more gas. And I want to tell you, we laughed so hard. We kept laughing, and we kept breaking up. So the director said, can we finally get this scene? But we couldn't stop breaking up. But you get those moments when you're working, and that's what makes it kind of fun. But I remained friendly with everybody, as I did in Lost in Space. In fact, Sheila Matthews, Irwin Allen's wife, who was very kind to me, just died. I'm going to go to her funeral on Friday. Mm-hmm. She told Irwin to put me in the Adventures of the Queen. We were at a party for Elmo Williams, who was doing the Caravan, and the Ashraf Pahlavi was at this party. It was at the Bistro in Beverly Hills, and we were in the restroom, and she said, you know, Irwin's doing this next project. You know, he'd be just great. Now, how do you like that? A girlfriend of the producer putting me in a show, you know? I mean, Irwin may have thought of it down the line, but she was a great gal, and she, of course, played quite a few parts in that show, in Queen and in Lost in Space. She was a little one of the strong gal characters. There were like three of us. There was one of four. There was the Golden Lady, the Green Lady, me, and Sheila, as far as the leading women on Lost in Space. But Neolani taking over the Robinson family, that was the pièce de résistance. That was like the part of all parts. That was my first guest star part. I wanted to mention before I forget that my movie, The Dog Squad. Are you familiar with that, Tony?
I did look at it. You know, I mean, I couldn't find a full print of it. I could only see the trailer, Francine.
Oh, well, okay. So now you're going to have a chance, because on November the 30th, now it'll probably be 2:15 out there because you're back east, but here it's going to be 11:15. And they're going to be showing it for the first time on Trigger Classics, which I'm very excited about. It's never been on there before, so I'm gonna alert the troops so everybody can watch it. And
fantastic!
And I save the world from the bubonic plague, because it's only because of me that you're still here, Tony.
Anyway, believe me.
Michael and Sarah's been in, of course, bless his heart, he just died. You know, I have a wall of photos in my hallway, and with all these different actors I've worked with, and I say, I see dead people. I mean, they're all gone, from Bob Hope to Tony Franciosa to Richard Boone, Marlon Brando, and Elvis, David Niven. I mean, you know, George Papard, all gone. It's really sad, you know. I was watching something on Turner Classics the other night, and I thought, I worked with him, and I worked with him, and I worked with him, and they're gone. But maybe they're making movies up in heaven, I would think. I'd like to think so. That they all meet up there and they start a whole production company. Wouldn't that be fun to think?
It really would be, and the fact that, you know, we have the legacy, and we have the great people like you who could tell us the stories, you know, that were there. I'll tell you what we were watching though is, and I've always had, and I don't know a lot about him, but I've always had sort of a quasi fascination with John Agar. And we were watching The Curse of the Swamp Creature, and John Agar, to me, I mean, obviously I never met him, and he would seem like to me a very interesting guy, because I guess he was a guy sort of way back when, married to Shirley Temple, who was sort of like the it guy, and then kind of, he's had sort of an interesting path from there and ended up to be sort of a, I guess sort of a horror movie, I'm not going to call him a fixture, but a frequent player. And you had the chance to work with him. What kind of guy was he like?
Oh, he was just super. You know, he belonged to AA because he was definitely an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. But what AA people do is they smoke a lot and drink a lot of coffee. So the smoking kind of put him there and they don't put him out. gone emphysema and everything, but I adore him. We just worked together. We actually remained friends until the very end. This happens with me a lot with people I work with. I mean, I couldn't see someone for a while, and all of a sudden, oh my God, it's like yesterday, you know. But we had quite an experience on that picture. We shot it in uncertain Texas, and it was sure uncertain. It was like very, very strange. In fact, the owner of the Fly and Fish Lodge, after we left about a week, he was killed on the road. It was kind of shocking. They had all sorts of, it's like swamp country, and all the houses are on like stilts as we were driving up there. We shot the first part in the studio. I like Larry Buchanan's direction because there's one scene where I go and I see that he has taken my crazy husband. For those who don't know, my husband is a scientist who is trying to create some kind of a cross between a fish and a man. I don't know. He's locked up, and I haven't seen any people for a long time. And along comes John Adon, and then there's unscrupulous gal who wants to find oil and has already killed some people. And anyway, my husband is crazy, and so there's a scene where he takes his partner Tom and turns him into this fish, and I go in there and I look into this big vat, and I'm supposed to scream, and Larry forgot to put the scream in. I don't know if you noticed that at all. And so I'm like, but there's no sound. And there's voices coming from off the set without coverage and so forth. It was an interesting experience, but I liked the part because I thought I had a chance to play this woman who was kind of kept captive, and her hesitant attitude in meeting people, and his viciousness and slapping me when he thought that I was, going to try to get out of my room or something. And in the end, the ending is so funny. When I go up to the monster, let's talk about laughing and saying to the monster, look at yourself, you were a beautiful girl. And the monster goes, and turns around and takes my husband and throws him in the alligator pond. I mean, you really have to have a sense of humor. And I said, boy, if I could do that, run up to the monster and say, you were a beautiful girl. I mean, that's Academy Award as far as I'm concerned. It was quite a thing. Well, it was fun doing it. It became such a cult film. And that, of course, the Dog Squad, and another one that I did was what's called First Woman in Space, Space Taurus, Space Monster, with James Brown, James D. Brown. He was a star from way back. That was a nice little picture. Bert Topper was the producer of that, director. And we get lost under the ocean, where our spaceship lands under the ocean, and we don't know whether we're going to survive or not. A little love scene was between James and I. Even the scenes are very sweet. He did Rin Tin Tin was his big series, if you recall.
Ah, okay.
Was it Rescue? Wait, was it? I think he did Rescue 8 too. Then he did Rin Tin Tin. He did both of those shows. Now it's quite a. And of course, when I did Bewitched, I mean, that was just super.
Yeah. And
Venus, I mean, who would like to play Venus? And had all the men fall in love with me. I said, well, it's just an everyday occurrence. I can play that, And then I did Green Acres, and all the men fell in love with me again. They wanted to take me to the dance, and you know who took me to the dance? Did you ever see that show?
I used to watch it frequently, and believe me, I haven't. I was well familiar with it, but I haven't watched it lately. So.
Well, all the men came a courting. They all came with flowers, and they each came at different times to the Eddie Albert and Eva's house. And then there's a knock at the door, and we look, and we don't see anybody eye to eye, and we look down, and there's Arnold the pig with flowers. I went to the dance with Arnold. How about that?
I'll tell you. No, please continue. I'm sorry. I was going to say that I'm a devout Alvy Moore fan. I love that Mr. Kimball character.
Oh, he was so adorable in this episode. Because I said, my name was Harvey, Terry Parker, and he thought that I was going to be a boy. So when he sees me, he goes, "Oh boy," and it was like they all kind of go crazy and over me, and it's kind of interesting working with Ava Gabor. Yeah, you've heard rather socially, but when you get competitive with another blonde of that type, and things happen. So she said, "Oh, Val, she may have the big boobies, but she'll be gone tomorrow." It was kind of funny. I didn't know that until they came over and told me. But she was nice to me. I had no idea that there was a little jealousy there. But one has to go through that in life, I guess. but she didn't show it to me. But they all came over to me and told me that. So
It's.
After it was done. So and Eddie Albert, he was an interesting character. I have quite a few Eddie Albert stories I'm going to tell in my book. I am writing my book right now.
Are you? Are you?
Yes, and we're just getting all the facts together, and it's going to tell an awful lot. I'm going to have a story about Warner Brothers that's never been told, and it is going to be a biggie. I may get food, I don't know, but controversy is good. A lot of the people that I've dated in my life, and they talk about all the shows, the different experiences, and what a girl has to go through in this industry to survive, and how you have to be chased around, the deaths here and there. That the dog squad, speaking of the dog squad, it was shown to Aaron Spelling, and he decided he was going to copy it and make it into Charlie's Angels. I don't know whether you knew that, Tony.
I did not.
In fact, I gave a copy to my maid, and she took it home and came back. She said, "Oh, that's Charlie Angels. That's my maid from Guatemala. That's Charlie's Angels," she said. Everybody knew it, and he took my name, Sabrina, and gave it to one of the girls. And I went in for the interview. The director was Charlie Grauman, and he made a big pass at me, and then I said, "No." He said, "Well, you're not the right type anyway." Well, anyway, whatever happened to Charlie Grauman? The things happen. I mean, I don't know today if they overtly do that as much as like in an interview, but I've never had anybody find out and say, "If you do this, I'll do that," or something. And if you do that, you may not get the part anyway, so why bother? It's a shame that you get subjected to that in this industry. I think it.
Well.
I know when I went in for Wild Wild West, the director, and I read, and he said, "Well, we have this problem. Our star, Rob Conrad, is not very tall." And so the next day he called me back, and he said, "I just read 40 Girls, and you become the shortest girl in town." I had to be strong to run the infirmary at Alcatraz, and kind of boss the guards around and everything. You couldn't have some little girl say, "You gotta get out of here." I don't think that would ever do, And I sort of have that authoritative sound about me. When I say get out, people get out. So he hired me just like that. Alex Mitchell. They don't have those kind of interviews today. Today you go to the casting directors. Sometimes they put you on camera. Sometimes they make the choice themselves, which is very unfair. And if the casting directors, sometimes they're big, fat, not too attractive women, and they get a little jealous. I've had a case here recently. I think she just brings me in to see how I look, and when she sees that I look good, I think that satisfies her, and I don't get the job. I'm telling you, there's just so much. It's you're damned if you stay in good shape, and you're damned if you don't. You know what I mean?
Well, and you're not the first person that has told us. It's a good friend of this show who's been on several times, and just a dear friend, a dear man, former Stamford, Connecticut kid like me, or me like him, Michael Dante, has said that on a number of occasions, that you work as a character actor, you get the call, you immerse yourself in the role, and you don't know if it's up or down, and there's a lot of you talk about sausage being made, and there's a lot of crazy stuff which you allude to, Francine, that we certainly don't think of when we're watching a finished work.
Yeah. Jeremiah, we used to date back in the 60s. I had a mad crush on him. He was just bloody gorgeous. He's a Virgo like I am. We're both Virgos. And in fact, we ended up getting a picture that we were both supposed to go to Iran, and the picture ended up the girl that he hired and the guy that the sound wasn't so good. So, and the girl to Max, so Michael, I ended up dubbing it. And I saw him at a fair about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I haven't seen him since. I've seen him on Facebook, but he was just so handsome, you know.
Yeah.
He had those roulette kind of looks, you know. He's a sweetheart. I love Michael.
Yeah, you have to. You just have to. I mean, in addition to being a legend, he's about as down to earth as you can get. You know, and believe me, our time always accelerates. You and Michael, or Michael and you, or forgive my bad grammar, you both worked with Elvis, and tell us what it was like with you working with Elvis.
Oh, I tell you, he was just the most charming and so handsome in person. I mean, and he just smiled and never left his face, and he talked to all of his girls. In my scene, they had to do it several times, and the director said, he said, Elvis, he said, do you mind doing this over again? He said, shucks, I could be like this all day. And there I was with my arms and cheek to cheek with Elvis. I mean, I was a few years back, I got a trip to Graceland and got to tell the story, and I said, he had the most incredible smell. Everybody said, well, was it cologne? I said, no. He just had this something. So the little lady came over to me after the show, came up, she said, tell me again, how did he smell? It was so funny. I mean, they're just aching for every little moment of what it was like working with him. And of course, down there at the Graceland is something. I got to see my poster there. We got a private tour. They took us in a limo and everything. And my God, I've got to see just everything. He'd be up there on the monitor singing, and you'd see his clothes, and you know you're in his house, and he's dead. And it's very sad. I find it very difficult to watch him in pictures now. Very difficult for me. You know, I liked him so much. I was on that picture for 6 weeks. So we got to see a lot of Elvis. His then girlfriend came on the set with a car that he had given her, and he would shoot her out. It was all over the set, you know, gossip travels fast. He said, don't you ever drive on the stage with that car again. Don't you ever do that. You know, you can't cross the line. You know, you have to, even though you're a girlfriend, you have to kind of keep the limit. But what a sweetheart, what a doll. I'm very sad that what happened to him. It just,
For sure.
It just should not have happened. He had the wrong people around him. Those guys were, you know, he bought them everything and gave them things, and they wanted to keep them that way. So keep them high, and you know, they had all this junk food around, and I just seemed to. It just, I mean, he wasn't in a good environment. That's my feeling. But I saw his grave and everything there, and the tears were just flowing. It was very, very sad. But I'm just thrilled that I could have the experience of having worked with him. It's such a legend. I mean, such a legend. Speaking of legends, you know, I did play Marilyn Monroe, and if you go to YouTube and put in Francine York, Marilyn Monroe, you can see me see a scene from the movie. It's called Marilyn's Alive and Behind Bars. The picture isn't the greatest, but I do a very interesting job. It was quite a challenge to play a legend.
Sure.
And I've been told, brag a bit, that it's the best Marilyn they've ever seen. So why don't you take a look at it, Tony? You can send me an email and tell me what you think. And if anyone listening, it's just go to Francine York, Marilyn Monroe. In fact, so many of my shows, if you go to YouTube, just put my name and you can see a lot of my shows that are on there. And there's a very funny clip that's on there from Bewitched, where I come out just in an apron. I don't know if you remember that. She tells me to go put on an apron because they bring me home as the maid.
Yes.
And I come out just in an apron, and everybody talks about that. They want to know whether I really had anything else on. I'll never tell. I see.
Well, better than that, I'm going to find the clip and we'll post it on our show Facebook page and tell everybody to take a look at it, because I'm sure you did the best, Marilyn. And this is amazing, Francine. We're almost out of time, and in our waning and remaining moments, can you tell our friends and fans what your current activities are, where they can reach you, what you'll be doing in the future, and how they can get in touch with you and share with you the privileges I've had doing these past 25 minutes?
Well, I have a nice website. It's www.francineyork.net. be sure to do the .net. And on there they can see the documentary of my life, my journey from a small town in Minnesota to Hollywood. They can see me singing the Enlistment Twist with Dick Sale and the Dale Telegraph. There's 2 interviews on there. And they can order all my films. They can order pictures. They can look into my film gallery. And they can also, in the last part, they can send me a message or they can order and they can contact me. And they can also find me on Facebook. And I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn if they want to reach me for any reason and ask me questions. And as I said, I'm working on my book now. And I'm also working on an independent project, which was written by director Vincent Sherman, who was passed in '06. And I'm going to be playing a madam, which is very interesting. I do very good madams. I played a few of them.
Well, we'd be honored and blessed to have you on again, perhaps maybe at a time when your book is released, because I'm sure we could have a great time with that. If you would, care to honor us, believe me, we'd accept readily. And I just can't thank you for enough for being here today, and you've been most kind and, gracious, and, I'm very, very humble to be speaking with you, and we'll wish you the continuing best. Let us know how you're doing. We'll certainly let all our fans know how you're doing, and thanks again, Francine, and continued success and being well, and we look forward to seeing you as we head into 2014.
And don't forget the Dog Squad, November 30th, Turner Classics.
I won't, and these guys won't. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye. The legendary Francine York, and the things you find out when you do this show that are incredibly unbelievable, and that's why you need to watch it all the time, because I have a chair with arms, because if I didn't I'd be falling over on the side. We'll be heading out for our closing remarks, and we will see you in a moment. Tony DeAngelo on Connecticut Morning, getting ready to cross the plate. Right back after this.